Captain Stefan Brandt is called to Berlin, where he is told that Kaiser Wilhelm II needs a new commander for his military guard. Despite being removed from leadership for failing in Poland, the country still sees Wilhelm as an important figure, so Stefan is given the job of protecting him. Stefan protests, saying he's not fit for service, but his superior reminds him that after his failure, he's lucky to be given this post instead of a court-martial. With no choice, Stefan heads to Holland, where the Kaiser is in exile. Upon arrival, a maid named Mika opens the door for him, and Colonel Sigurd, the Kaiser's military assistant, greets him. Meanwhile, the Kaiser's wife, Hermine, warns Wilhelm that his military protection has arrived. Wilhelm refuses to accept it, but Hermine insists that it's important to make a good impression, as the regime might want Wilhelm back. She suggests they invite the new commander to dinner. As Stefan starts his duties, he learns from Inspector Dietrich that he's also expected to spy on the Kaiser, reporting on Wilhelm's attitudes toward the regime. The inspector also mentions that they intercepted signals suggesting the British Secret Service might try to kidnap or assassinate Wilhelm. Later, Mika interrupts a war briefing between Sigurd and Wilhelm, bringing them coffee. Wilhelm jokingly asks if she would have invaded Holland if she were in charge of the army, to which Mika quickly agrees, saying the country is beautiful, which makes the Kaiser laugh. That evening, Mika visits Stefan's room to deliver the Kaiser's dinner invitation. Stefan, captivated by her beauty, asks Mika to undress, and she does so. They share a moment together, but Stefan soon feels discomfort from an old injury. He then asks her to leave. At dinner, Wilhelm talks about his reign. When Hermine changes the subject to Stefan, the captain reveals that his father and grandfather served in the army, while his mother, who died when he was young, worked as a house cleaner. Wilhelm is angered by this, as it happened during his reign. He wonders if he is to blame for the loss, saying that he gave his life to the country, only for his navy to betray him. His outburst silences the room, and Wilhelm eventually leaves. Later, Stefan returns to his room to find Mika there again. This time, Mika asks Stefan to undress, and he shows her the scar from his injury. They spend some time together, but afterward, Mika leaves quickly, ignoring Stefan's request for her to stay. The next morning, Mika delivers more bread for the ducks outside, and Wilhelm invites her to join him. As they feed the ducks, Wilhelm comments on her hands, noticing she doesn't seem used to hard work. Mika replies that the war changed her life. Wilhelm, feeling the weight of his past, says he prefers the company of ducks because they don't blame him for anything. Mika, sympathizing with his situation, understands his regret over losing power. Just then, Stefan arrives, and Wilhelm teasingly mentions that the captain suspects a British spy in the household, which catches Mika's attention. The Kaiser tells the maid to show Captain Stefan to his new room. As she leads him there, Stefan takes the opportunity to get to know her better. She warns him that it's against the rules for staff to spend the night with men. When Stefan asks where her room is, Mika reluctantly tells him before leaving. Later, Inspector Dietrich visits the captain to report that they've traced a suspicious transmission to a nearby village. At the same time, Mika rushes to meet Pastor Hendricks in the village. She warns him that the army is aware there's a spy in the household, but he reassures her that they don't have enough information yet, since no one has been arrested. Mika asks for more time, but the pastor tells her to be careful and only act when it's safe. The next morning, Mika cleans her pistol before heading to work. That evening, she serves drinks to the men while the Kaiser discusses the war with Stefan and Sigurd. Wilhelm, drunk, starts ranting about how he never wanted the war. He claims he tried to send a telegram to stop the invasion, but his generals ignored it. Colonel Sigurd tries to change the subject by offering to show Stefan Wilhelm's military uniforms. As they move away from the Kaiser, Stefan comments that Wilhelm, still the Kaiser at the time, could have sent another telegram to prevent the war. Later, Pastor Hendricks sends a message to his allies, unaware that Dietrich's team is intercepting it. Meanwhile, Wilhelm wakes up in his office and finds Mika cleaning up. She tries to speak with him, but is interrupted when his wife arrives. Later, to Mika's surprise, Stefan is reading her book on her bed. He apologizes for how he treated her the first night they met, and she reassures him that she agreed to be with him because she wanted to. After a passionate night together, Mika asks about the scar on his side, and Stefan explains it was from his last mission. Mika then asks if Stefan always follows orders, to which he answers yes. She reveals that she's Jewish, testing his loyalty. Stefan freezes for a moment, but ultimately brushes it off, admitting that he's fallen for her. Mika reminds him that he may have to care about her past one day, but he insists on enjoying their stolen moments while they last. That night, Stefan has a nightmare about a pile of bodies, which wakes him early. Mika realizes he's having nightmares, but Stefan tells her not to mention her past to anyone and leaves. As Stefan smokes outside, he notices the smell of gun oil on the cigarette pack he took from Mika's nightstand, but he doesn't act on it. He meets Dietrich, who tells him they've confirmed that the person sending messages to the British is in the village, and they plan to meet them in the morning. Dietrich also informs Stefan that Reichsführer Himmler will be joining them for dinner the next day, and because of his high rank, they need to search the house before his arrival. Stefan delivers the message to Wilhelm during breakfast, but Hermine beats him to it by announcing Himmler's visit first. She speaks to Stefan privately, stressing that Himmler's visit could help her husband regain power. She insists that they remain loyal to the Führer, but also acknowledges Germany's struggles. Hermine reveals that she used her influence to arrange the meeting with Himmler, hoping it will improve Wilhelm's standing. She asks Stefan to ensure that the Reichsführer hears only good things about Wilhelm and his household. The inspector's house search begins, and Mika grows worried. To protect her, Stefan volunteers to search her room himself, already suspicious that she might be the spy. Mika helps Wilhelm feed the ducks again, and frustrated by the ongoing inspection, the Kaiser asks about her romantic life. After some hesitation, Mika admits she's seeing someone, but doesn't know him well. Wilhelm shares a story about his first love, who married someone else, and advises Mika to take every chance for love. Once the inspection ends, Mika quickly leaves the manor, unnoticed by the guards. Later, she meets Pastor Hendricks at the church and suggests killing Himmler during his visit, but Hendricks refuses, insisting it's not their mission. Mika, driven by revenge for her father and husband's deaths, convinces him to ask their allies if the plan should go forward. Unknown to them, Stefan overhears. That night, Hendricks sends a message to London, allowing Dietrich's men to track him. Meanwhile, Mika seeks comfort in Stefan's room, and they spend the night together. Stefan wakes up early after a nightmare about a massacre in Poland. He shares his past, explaining his dismissal after beating an officer who was responsible. Mika argues that the regime is full of men like that officer, but Stefan refuses to believe it. Feeling disappointed, Mika prepares to leave when Stefan unexpectedly proposes. She reminds him she's Jewish, but he promises to protect her. Their conversation is interrupted when Hermine discovers their relationship and demands they be fired. However, Wilhelm, after speaking privately with them, approves of their relationship, explaining that he too had affairs. He orders them to keep things discreet, but continue their duties. Despite the good news with Wilhelm, Stefan is quickly summoned to meet Dietrich, who informs him that Pastor Hendricks has been captured and is being tortured for information. Dietrich assures Stefan they'll uncover the spy's identity soon, which worries Stefan. Meanwhile, Hermine privately speaks with Sigurd, expressing concern about Wilhelm's potential reaction to Himmler's visit. Sigurd warns her that if Wilhelm provokes Himmler, it could cost them everything, citing the recent deaths of a former chancellor and his wife for opposing the regime. Hermine insists Sigurd must prevent Wilhelm from angering Himmler. Stefan returns to the manor but is interrupted by Himmler's arrival. After some formalities, Stefan warns Mika about Hendricks' capture. Mika feigns ignorance and asks why he's telling her this. Stefan accuses her of using him and confesses his suspicions, mentioning how he tracked her to the church and noticed gun oil in her room. Mika tells Stefan to arrest her if it's his duty, but he can't do it. Instead, he orders her to leave. Mika insists she has a mission to complete, but Stefan remains conflicted. Meanwhile, Hermine nervously tries to bribe Himmler, hoping to gain his support for Wilhelm's return to the throne. Later, Himmler walks with Wilhelm, and Hermine learns her husband has been invited back to Berlin, believing it signals his reinstatement as king. She's excited, but Wilhelm advises her to keep it a secret for now. Meanwhile, Stefan meets Dietrich, who is still waiting for news on the pastor's confession. Himmler arrives and tells Stefan and Dietrich that he has deceived the Kaiser into thinking the Führer will restore him to the throne. This ruse is meant to flush out those loyal to the monarchy. He orders them to intercept all communications from the Kaiser's household. At dinner, the officers discuss the Jewish issue. Some blame Wilhelm for not addressing it sooner, but the Kaiser defends himself. Himmler claims the army is working on a solution, mentioning a disturbing experiment where the disabled were eliminated. The officers are shocked but try to conceal it. As the dinner ends, Mika quietly approaches Stefan, sensing his unease. She tells him that men like Himmler are the norm, but he is an exception. Stefan asks Dietrich to keep him updated once the pastor reveals any information. Meanwhile, Wilhelm and Hermine wait for news. Stefan, troubled by the regime's cruelty, decides to warn Sigurd that the Kaiser's return to Berlin is a trap to expose his supporters. Stefan rushes to Mika's room but finds it empty. He realizes she is in the woods delivering a message to the Kaiser from the British Prime Minister. When he hears Mika's call for help, claiming the Kaiser has collapsed, he hurries back to the manor with her. Stefan learns that the pastor has revealed Mika's identity to Dietrich, and she tries to flee. In a desperate move, Mika pulls a gun on Stefan, but he convinces her to lower it as Dietrich's men are closing in. Stefan quickly seals the area and escapes with her. Meanwhile, Wilhelm tells Hermine that he turned down an invitation to England, preferring to stay in Holland. Hermine fears Himmler's influence, but Wilhelm knows the regime is full of supporters. She accepts his decision and kisses him. Stefan and Sigurd arrive with a van to take Wilhelm to the hospital. Stefan drives off without Hermine and Sigurd to meet Mika in the woods, where they explain the situation to the Kaiser. As they approach the gates, Dietrich's men are waiting. Stefan orders Mika to give him her gun and tells Dietrich he's taking the Kaiser to the hospital. Dietrich insists on checking the van but reluctantly continues the search elsewhere. Mika, fearing capture, takes a pill, but Wilhelm stops her just in time. Stefan uses her gun to shoot the officers, allowing them to escape. At a safe distance, Mika thanks Wilhelm, and the Kaiser falls asleep. Mika invites Stefan to join her, but he refuses, saying he cannot leave his country. He assures her that he can explain the situation and that they must part ways. He asks Mika to marry him, and she agrees, if he finds her after the war. Weeks later, Stefan receives a package with Mika's book, containing an address. He calls the Kaiser's home to confirm their mutual friend is safe. In London, Mika meets with the Prime Minister. As the war nears its end, Stefan looks forward to reuniting with Mika, unaware that she is carrying his child.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.